we're back for round 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Round 2.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming through again. I really enjoyed our last chat.
Happy to be here.
I wanted to talk to you this time around. I wanted to talk to you around some of the social aspects of substances, and I mean not just cannabis, but as well on top of that, I wanted to see what your thoughts are in regards to the relation of that and the pharmaceutical companies, because obviously that's a hot topic right now. And while we're not necessarily talking about it in the context of the pandemic, that always has been something on people's minds anytime it came to substance, because from that point of view, they're looking at it from a very commercial point of view as opposed to a health focused point of view. Like, well, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned in the previous episode, like, I do think that people who voted no are not necessarily voting because they think it's dangerous. You have the older people who have had this preconceived notion of what cannabis is. Then you've got the the drug dealers who don't really want to go through the regulation and everything. And then you've now another group that I forgot to mention was this new medicinal cannabis community, who obviously don't want recreational cannabis to become a thing because it would impede on their profits. And so that includes there was a lot of fundraising that was going on for some of these companies. Like a year ago or so, I saw billboards and things, and so the investors in that, as well as the doctors who would get paid for people coming for prescriptions, as well as the pharmaceutical companies and the producers of those products, they're not going to want it recreationally legalized, even though they know there's no harm it's not related to health, the reasons. It's more related to money.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's kind of like somebody once talked about cars, they're made of metal, they're made of pretty sturdy things, but they always tend to break. And they talked about how, the reason why they don't make a car that will drive for 10 years without needing any attention is because you're cutting out an entire industry.
True.
So I think, I suppose this is kind of a similar situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apart from, the whole, they don't make them like they used to, because my Honda is still going. Yeah.
Actually, what year is your Honda?
91.
91, far out.
So
it's as old as I am.
31 years old, yeah. 30 years old, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Well, okay. Well, in terms of the kind of economic competitive aspect of it, do you think that there would have been like some sort of like political, it's always called political pressure, but at the end of the day, it's more like the financial pressure, it's the people who have the money to lobby for such things.
Yeah. And if you look at alcohol, that's definitely the relationship between lawyers of alcohol companies and the government is insane. Like, why would you have lawyers from an alcohol company having intimate relationships with the government to liaise around the laws around alcohol, because they know that is a dangerous substance. And and what's really, they're trying to spin like the cannabis industry, this medicinal cannabis industry, as a positive thing for New Zealand. They're saying, oh, look at all these jobs we're giving, we're helping so many Kiwis, and that's all a facade. Like that's all on the surface level. If you look below what that is, you're looking at these regulations coming in, these big fees that these companies will pay the government. You're looking at, so it's people who already have money, who are all these investors and everything. They can see New Zealand as this landmine for growing cannabis, and like this money pit, and so the lobbying to the government is of course swayed by this, the fact that there's so much money to be made in this medicinal cannabis industry. Who loses out? The average Kiwi.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that too, because, you know, like in my mind, it, you know, it creates a bit of a dissonance, so to speak, because for one, like I am not aware of the medicinal cannabis industry in New Zealand at all. You know, I mean, I know it's there, but you know, I don't hear about it. I don't see it. I don't know anybody involved in it. I don't know anybody that actually receives any kind of treatment from them or anything like that. I don't know people like that.
Okay.
You know, and I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of people that like weed.
Yeah.
You know, but none of them have ever gone down that path of trying to kind of legally obtain some sort of treatment or anything like that. And when I say I know people that like weed, I know people that actually use it for, you know, well, not recreational purposes. You know, they're actually trying to address certain health related issues with it. And what I find funny about this whole thing is, you know, like, so it sounds like it's quite a, you know, like an obviously elitist rich people's kind of thing, but I feel like rich people aren't into weed.
Oh, well, you know, if you market it in a certain way, then they are. Like, it's the same with the way that mainstream media's trying to spin it, you know, that it helps people, that cannabis is so wonderful and its amazing different properties and the different molecules of it. Like, it's literally, it's not just cannabinoids, there's the terpenes, there's the flavonoids, there's even in the roots that's underutilized and not known to many people that has therapeutic benefits. But when you instead of phrasing cannabis as like the smoking thing, you know, you're a hippie or whatever, then to that market you're promoting an oil, you know, like it's not, you're not a drug intaker, you're just using this, you're using it as a medicine.
Like it's kind of like it's more you know,
refined.
this new trendy holistic approach, you know, like I mean, people use all these like essential oils and shit like that, so it's kind of like it's easier to pass it through to that kind of community. It's just like, you know, CBD oil, you know, like this stuff is very, very popular with like the new age wellness community.
And then like the wellness market is huge, like especially now more so than ever with all this immunity stuff that people are talking about. And what's funny to me is that, you know, these articles that came out about these acids within cannabis that prevent COVID infection,
and they said don't smoke weed because it's not going to help.
But so, and this happens with not just cannabis but so many other plants, where what happens is we already know the therapeutic benefits. We've got ancestral use, not just of cannabis but of so many other plants. But nowadays, to get recognized or have that stamp of approval, you first have to go look at the molecule that you like in a scientific sense and see if that has an effect on some cells. So you'll do some cellular biology to see if there's like an anti-inflammatory effect or whatever, which is questionable science as well if you really break it down. But and then what happens is, if it does show that there is an anti-inflammatory effect or whatever therapeutic benefit, then it gets a tick, and that it gets a tick from science. And then you go into marketing, and then you can market that product as, this is scientifically proven as an anti-inflammatory, when you knew it all along from the ancestral use of it, you know, and all these folklores and the fact that it's a plant. And what was crazy about, someone sent me an article about propolis and these chemicals within honey that were that also had an effect on COVID. And I broke it down, I looked at it, and I saw that the chemicals that they were talking about are actually flavonoids found in lots of different fruits and vegetables. So basically it was saying, if you eat your fruits and vegetables, you're going to be healthy.
I mean, this is something that goes around quite a lot at the moment. It's just like, well, look, especially at this point too, you know, we don't seem to be dealing with something that's just, you know, this aggressive, you know, Black Plague type virus. It's a virus that literally seems to kill people that are unhealthy. You know, like, I mean, I'm not going to get into all the statistics of it, but like, you know, but just by the sound, just read the newspapers, whatever you want to, you know, whatever you want to do. It sounds like mainly the people that are dying either have some sort of a condition already, you know, it could be a genetic condition, it could be an age-related condition, you know, as you get old, you kind of accumulate different diseases and whatnot. Or, you know, you're just plain old, you know. As you get older, that's what happens, you know. At this point in time, it's, you know, it's the truth. We haven't kind of figured out how to deal with old age to the extent where we can kind of eliminate these things. And, you know, like right now, there's a lot of push for that. It's just like, look, let's kind of look at what COVID is suggesting to us. Is that we need to improve our lifestyles. We need to promote that. Not fucking give people KFC for taking, you know, for taking the jab and whatnot.
But, you know, what I think about is people seem to want to cure old age. Like, how long do you want to live for? Like, is the question.
I heard there was some sort of, I can't exactly say what it was, but I have heard that at some point they've done a study as to what the maximum living age for a human body is, and apparently they came through to like a hard 150 years. So
wow.
if we manage to kind of mitigate a lot of these surrounding factors, you know, like keep the germs away, keep the diseases away. So we just kind of manage to keep a person healthy for, you know, for that amount of time. They'll live up to 150 before the body just fully shuts down. Obviously, I can understand that, like, if we get into the more kind of almost science fictional aspect of it with, you know, nanotech and whatnot, that can kind of replenish cells and everything and keep you forever young. I suppose you can be immortal, so to speak. Yeah,
not just that. They've done experiments in rats where they've extended the lifetime of rats like 200-fold. So for us equivalent, it would be like if we lived to 1,000 years. So they would really restructure society.
You know what I feel like what happened. I feel like people would fucking go crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can live for 1,000 years. I feel like most people these days like. Live to 100.
Well, like, I personally don't know why you would want to live to 1,000. But if you think about it, it's like, if you had that life expectancy, when would you have children? Like, if you wanted to, like, would you still have them at 25, or would you have them when you're 300?
Well,
and like, how many do you have?
And what happens to the population?
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, so like, if you're gonna, the whole thing kind of relies on the kind of, you know, cyclical nature of it, as you know, like. People are born, people die, and we still manage to grow because, you know, for every person, you know, they can have multiple kids, so it kind of, you know, there's an exponential growth, so to speak. But, you know, if you're not gonna die and you're gonna keep reproducing, like, at which point do we run out of space? You know, like if we have a real estate crisis now, I feel like.
But you know, I feel like by the point in which we're able to implement that kind of technology, we'll probably be at the same time cultivating other planets. Possibly, potentially.
Yeah, we really haven't got anything too close though. I know they're trying to go to Mars, but like, fuck, I don't want to go to Mars. It doesn't look like that fun place. Like, I mean, like, I'm sure the people out there, they want to be, you know, the pioneers that like conquered Mars, but I don't think I want to go there. It looks pretty shit.
Well, I mean, that's one of the issues that we have in our society. Like, coming back to that is, you know, our lifestyle and how it is kind of out of whack at the moment, to the point where, you know, Mother Earth is saying, you know, is throwing a fit right now, and it's just going to intensify, as we all know, because of our lifestyle. It's like, and when you say you don't want to go to Mars, is it like because there's nothing there, or is it because you don't have, you know, your ceviche or whatever you're eating, or
ceviche?
I don't know, you know, like all these luxuries of this society.
It does look like it's going to be a bit of a hard time.
Yeah, well, like, I feel like humans are really adaptive, and if that was your only choice, you know, to go there, you'd do it, and you'd adjust to that way of living. I think pretty depending on your openness I think you could adapt pretty quickly.
I think so too. I mean, like anything, what do they say? It takes 3 weeks of doing something for something to become routine. So, go to Mars for 3 weeks, spend a month
Totally.
there. Eventually you'll be
all
alright.
I'm seeing is Matt Damon in my head, though.
Yeah, that movie,
poop
yeah,
plant.
it's crazy movie, man. Like he stitched himself and shit.
Yeah, and he was a botanist as well.
But it's what I find really interesting about this whole thing is it's humanity's push for survival.
Yeah.
Like, see
At
that
the
one thing, I
cost.
know like it always like kind of collides with people's general sentiment, especially when I talk about it. But yeah, I don't understand why people want to kind of as a species survive so bad.
Yeah,
I feel like this is like, I don't understand that group think. I don't. I feel like, you have your own life, you have your individual experience. You obviously are interconnected with everything else. I'm not saying, be individualist to the point where you just don't give a shit about anything, your environment and other people. But once it's done, it's done. Like once it's over, you're dead. Like none of this matters, and you're not going to care about what happens to people, to Earth, or anything like that. And ultimately, Earth is screwed. That's the other thing.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. I have a different point of view. I also think that the reason why there's a push for survival of humanity is because that's what life is. That is. It's just a natural push for creation and like reproduction. Like that's the basis of all kind of life on Earth, and I believe.
So do you think it's quite like instinctual?
Huh?
It's like an instinctual thing
Yes.
for us to kind of want to continue that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of makes me a little bit weird then that I don't see it that way.
Like I've had similar views before, and now they've changed. I don't know if it's because like I'm getting older as a female, but I really see the importance of creating a better world for children, for them to have a life that is of meaning to them, in whichever way they want that meaning. Because right now we're out of whack with nature. We're coming to the point where you've got people protesting about trees being cut down, 200-year-old trees, which obviously hold much more wealth to the earth than cutting it down for a plaque.
You're talking about Pablo and all the boys.
Yeah, I'm talking
Shout
about
out to Pablo. I love you. I love your work, bro. I'm gonna have you on here one of these days.
And not just that, but Putiki as well. And because basically I can't understand how there is such resistance to maintaining our natural world, because once it's gone, it's gone. Like you can't get that back. The children are not going to have it. It's not going to be there. And what have you replaced it with? People are acting like resources are infinite. They're not. And
definitely.
Yeah, and like to act like you're so important to hoard resources and to make your little collection to make you feel better about yourself. Like that's not what you're looking for. Like I'm just gonna, like people who have that idea, I cannot get behind. I know like there's parts of the society where you have to actually be a hypocrite to actually survive, and like within this monetary system. But like in essence, we've gone way too far in this direction. We need to pull that right back.
Just going back to the whole argument about children and in future. I mean, my view on this is, if we don't leave Earth, ultimately, a few generations down the line, they're going to be screwed as well. I mean, the reason why I see this is, like what we do know is that sun is going to expand and is going to consume Earth at one point.
Okay, yeah.
Like that's going to happen and Earth is screwed, So like, even if Earth like even if we just fuck up the earth to the point where we can't survive on it anymore, I don't think earth actually cares very much. I know that, like, you know, they attach a lot of these things about, like, they almost try to humanize nature in that sense, but, you know, you got to remember, like, earth started off as like a ball of lava and chaos. Like, it doesn't feel anything. It's going to be all right. It's going to continue no matter what happens to it. It's just going to continue evolving. So if we die out, it's still going to be here. So, you know, like, I don't think that focusing it on the planet itself is the right way to go about it. But I still understand, you know, the whole the whole relationship between nature and people. Now, if we're looking at it strictly from that point of view, then we do still have that ultimate point where even if we maintain Earth in in real good nick and everything is nice, the sun's still going to expand.
That's so fatalistic, though.
It is, but at the same time, I think, like, see, from my point of view, like, this kind of fatalism allows you to, you know, to just kind of experience things in a less kind of
detached way.
In a detached, but also, like, less conservative way.
Like
you embrace the fact that, you know, ultimately everything ends, so you might as well not kind of cry about it, that, you know, something could be negative. You embrace the negative and the positive.
Yeah, I guess so. But in that sense, what's the point in living from your
to
point
experience?
Of view? Your experience.
Literally to experience.
Yeah.
So because you're gonna die. Nothing is gonna stop that.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point even being sad about it. Like, that's why I think that's one thing that we still as people haven't quite learned to deal with either. You know, like, people need to understand that the baby they're holding in their hands is going to get old and die one day.
Yes.
And that's sad. And there's nothing sad about that. It's the circle of life. Like, you know, you come up, you go down, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
As you said, experience is what you're looking for, right? So what is a human experience? What are we based on? We're based on energy, and we have emotions. That's part of being human. So you want to avoid being sad because sad is pointless?
No, I'm saying embrace the sad and don't fight it so hard. And at the same time, see, the other thing is we look at it as just like, oh, well, we need to create something better for the future generations. The thing we don't understand as people at this point in time, so not in the future generations, is that they're going to have a different view on it. Think of it this way: if we were to go back into the past right now, for us it would suck. It would just be like, you know, everything is primitive, nothing is, you know, like, it'll have its novelty.
Cool.
It'll have its novelty for a while, but if you had to, like, okay, this is you every day now. You know, like, you don't have to, like, certain luxuries of technology,
But that's the same as going to Mars. Like, you're not going to have that. And whatever
you can still take stuff with you.
Whatever you do have or don't have, it's all about your mindset. Like, what you possess. Yeah,
no, that's exactly it. So, you know, at that point in time in the future, the mindset will be different. So if you look back, you know, you look at, you know, the technological advancement of people versus the level of happiness. You know, we're not doing very well right now. Compared to the past, we've jumped light years ahead of them in a relatively short amount of time compared to what they used to do. But, you know, people are as unhappy as ever.
But that is, if you're looking at technology as progress, is that what you're relating the human experience to? Because, you know, if you are experiencing sadness for whatever reason, you have the option to act from that, whether you act in like a way that can reduce the sadness and like on a and when we see the future generations come through, what I'm seeing is like there's no point attitude from a lot of young people, because we have created, like, our background has created the society which they can see the futility of the society. Like, and so why not just dance on TikTok? Because, like, this world is fucked. And, like, what kind of world? Like, if you're not trying to use technology, like, we're using it in the wrong way. There is no, what you said about Earth being fucked and stuff, we actually have the ability, the knowledge, and everything we need to sustain and regenerate the Earth in, like, a positive way.
You're right. No, you're exactly right. And see, this is where the two things kind of collide. On one hand, yeah, you end up with a lot of younger people kind of coming in with this kind of like, what's the point attitude, because the system is so far gone that at this point you're an NPC. You're a non-playable character. You're not changing shit.
Well, I mean,
that's how they feel anyway. You know. But in terms of technology, yeah, like we have a lot of limitations coming from an economic system, the major economic system anyway. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the differences of what communism is, what capitalism is.
I don't give a fuck.
But assuming that capitalism is the kind of the dominant system around the world, that is essentially what's limiting us, because we're not using technology, for in some sort of like ideological or any of those kind of ways. We're using it for profit.
Yes, and it's only profit for some, for a very few. And there's the hoarding of resources. And what is so telling about our society right now is the fact that you've got a billionaires race up into space during a pandemic where there's so much help that can be done. And they say that they're helping, but I don't see it, because if I had $1 billion, I can tell you I would come up with some solutions for so many areas and aspects.
Do you think, I mean, like this is something that I've actually thought about quite a bit recently. Why do people hoard shit? Because this is not just about the billionaires. Like, it's easy to point the finger at them because they're the more public figures. They do these, ridiculous things. But people really are hoarding shit. This speaks to a number of things, such as the real estate crisis that's, it's in New Zealand, but it's actually happening all over the world. Like, real estate is really going through the roof. Are we really running out of space?
No. And also, when it comes to people owning land, you don't even own your body. It's on rent. Why do you think you have the stance, the stature to own land? Like, I own this land.
But like the kind of the ideology aside, like, why do you think so many people are into that right now? I mean, I feel like, why would you hoard so much shit? Because you're probably anticipating something.
I reckon
it's kind of like, I mean, let's simplify it to people hoarding toilet paper during a pandemic. Yeah. Why are they doing that? Because they're scared to run out of toilet paper.
But why are they scared to run out of toilet paper? And that is because they've been told to be scared. Mm-hmm. It's the same with every aspect of this, is like the influence of these external forces, especially the media and advertising and marketing. Like, that's all for money, and you're trying to you feed on the emotions of humans.
But see, this is where capitalism plays a big role as well, because what this does is it creates scarcity. I mean, capitalism only works when there is, when there's one pack of toilet paper and 5 people willing to fight over it, because you're gonna pay more. You can raise the prices up. Yeah. I mean, that's the same with real estate. Prime example. There's not enough of it around, allegedly, and which is why people are paying through the roof.
But what the people, the lack of real estate or whatever. Where do you hear most about that topic? In the fucking news.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, is like this climate of fear created through the likes of mass media, social media, whatever it is. It's it has an aim. Yeah. I think this is what's really lost in translation quite often, is like, oh, well, you're fear-mongering, you're trying to control us, but, there is kind of like a more clear financial end to this, is what you're doing, you're creating out of, like, I mean, I don't know whether it's artificial or not, but it's definitely creating scarcity.
Yeah, I just think it's manipulation of the masses in, like, such a huge way, because I have no desire to own land. I've got no desire to buy toilet paper or whatever. Like, people don't understand. They hold their own solutions in their mind, and they don't need to conform to this society. And this is why we're facing such a big issue here, is because people are trying to hold on to this illusion that you need the house, you need the kids, you need to be on that track, in order to be successful,
very
to
true.
be accepted.
So throughout this lockdown last year, I really didn't think about it until something happened in my life that I really got sucked into that trap. You know, like I realized that prior to all these things happening, I had a lot of ideas. There were a lot of things I wanted to do, but because, you know, we're kind of locked down, I'm simply unable to do them now. I ended up kind of, you know, switching them up and compromising for those kind of things, you know, because what can you do? Well, you can still buy a house, you can still kind of try and battle it out for your, you know, for your career and income and family, etc. You know, so like it really created that that priority out of nowhere. And it wasn't until later that I actually figured it out, that I was just like, well, you know, like, did I actually did I want it in the first place? Was I that kind of person? You know, like, as far as I remember myself, I never was, but, you know, yet here we were, like, to the extent where it stressed me out, you know, like, it just, like, really did bad things to me.
I've really definitely felt the societal pressure to conform to a certain way of life. And one thing that I love about this pandemic and such is that I've really been able to separate what is actually what is from me and what is coming from an external sort of force. Like, and when you break down the media and you know, the toilet paper thing, like, if you really think about it, what is your solution? There are so many trees out there if you really need it. Like, and not just that, like, can you jump in the shower after you take a shit? Like,
I always thought about that. Like, it's just like, man, like,
what's the fucking deal, man?
There's a lot of things I would pick, like, for survival before toilet paper. Like, I'm just saying,
And like, you know, so if there is a place where you get to the point where society breaks down, I think that scares people a lot, because they're like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And it's like, have you ever thought back to our beginnings as cavemen or whatever we were? They didn't need anything for survival.
Okay, but see, like,
they just went out and did what they needed to do. Come back to their
It brings
cave.
an interesting point, like the reason why everybody's so scared. Because I mean, you know, like, if you're just kind of a person by yourself, you know, like a self-sufficient person, you're not really going to be intimidated by it that much. But the thing is, society is kind of still, you know, based on the idea of family and everything. And this is what really gets people. And this is what's really hard to kind of try to talk about either, because the moment you start talking about family and kids, like, the level of defensiveness goes through the roof. It's kind of like, how dare you? This is everything. I will murder for this kind of thing. And I'm just like, well, yeah, it makes sense, and I can totally understand how you feel about that. But at the same time, it makes you think about how we got to that point, and how, you know, how people are kind of they're controlled through that kind of fears. You're not scared of the fact that you're going to run out of toilet paper, but you are scared of the fact that, you know, your child, your parents, your partner, whoever is going to go without and is going to be in danger. You're not so much worried about yourself as you are about them. Yeah,
well, if you break it down, we've sort of replaced the survival of the caveman. We've created, you know, of going out and getting your resources, coming back to your family and stuff in the cave or whatever. We've replaced that whole thing with money. Money is your survival tool in this society, and it's a natural instinct to protect your children and, you know, the people that you spend lots of time with and your loved ones. And so when you have that sort of illusion that money is your survival and you're within the system, you can't see a way out of that, especially when you've got these people underneath you who need the protection. Like, I want a better generation, like a better future for children, like, who come through, and that is just an instinctual thing, but it's not related to our society, if you can understand that. It's like, I like to reform the way we live in such a way that we are living more closely with nature, because we are connected to nature, and this whole society is built on this disconnection from nature, this disconnection from spirituality, in whatever sense, and a disconnection from our whole potential as humans and as individuals.
I'm gonna bring it back for you as well, because see me, I don't think in those terms. I don't think in terms of nature and spirituality.
I know.
If you think about it, I can be looked at as a relatively cynical person when it comes to that. But that being said, throughout all my experiences, I always go back to nature. I always go back to enjoying these simple things. Like nothing fixes things for me the way that does.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
No matter what I go through, like I can go through absolute hell, and at the end of the day, I'll probably find myself somewhere like by a waterfall or by like doing a hike or whatever, and that will lift me out of that. And even though I don't see myself as a person that kind of gets too into these things to the extent of like hugging trees and being one with nature, I can still appreciate the fact that we do have a very close connection with that. And you also notice how when you actually want to go out of your way to be a part of that, the thing that's restricting you the most is that you have to get up and go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the tie into the system. Like, we are not just connected to nature. Like, we are nature. We are a part of nature. And, things are cyclical. And so now we're at a point where we're so out of whack. And you can see it with the wellness sector, especially. People are coming back around to understand that it's nature that is in essence our spirit, our spirituality. And I know that you come from this like big bang, like look at the universe kind of thing. The sun might blow up at any second. But when you look at cosmology and you look at metaphysics and the metaphysical principles of the universe, it's tied in with spirituality. Like 100%, you cannot deny it. And
Right.
that's the same with our intuitive relationship with nature as well. Like, as I was saying, all these folklores and all these medicines that came from plants, back in the day, that we're needing to like put a label on with science and market it and stuff. Like, this is an intuitive thing with nature. This is our connection. This is us being nature.
This is a good way to kind of bring it back around to substances.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've gone down a pretty big rabbit hole, and I love that. But when you take that into consideration, right? Because there's all sorts of different substances, and like we've already talked about how some of them are just destroyers of worlds.
Yeah.
Everything has to come from somewhere. There is this kind of view on things where some things are natural, some things are processed, but ultimately it all still comes from the earth. It doesn't come from anywhere else. We don't conjure this shit up. And even if we process something in the lab, it still has to start from somewhere. Even heroin comes from poppies,
Yeah,
and heroin will fuck you up. You just don't mess with that.
Well, alcohol is based on plants, different plants.
Exactly. So there's plenty of those kind of things.
Or petrol.
And in terms of certain substances, like for example, if we look at LSD, magic mushrooms, one that's always really interested me is ayahuasca. Is that like how you pronounce it?
No, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I always mess it up, but it's the whole. It's like in South America they have their whole ceremony, and I obviously have never tried it, and I don't actually know a whole lot about it, but I heard that it's one of those experiences where somebody feels like they experiencing this, what they call an ego death. So it's kind of like you've died and you're kind of reborn again, and you've had that whole near-death experience, so to speak, that kind of clears a lot of things up in your head. That being said, I feel that what is your view on that? Do you think if as a society we started exploring these things a bit more, that we could benefit from them? Because at the end of the day, if you look back at history, we have done that in the past.
Yes.
Before we even had a concept of drugs and the cocaines and meths and everything like that we actually kind of got through the more chemical processing side of things, you know, drugs were around in the days of the Vikings and, well, you know, a lot.
I didn't know that.
A lot earlier before that. You
well,
know, like
I know
these.
that, you know, cannabis has been around for ages.
Exactly, cannabis and, you know, a lot like the psychedelic mushrooms,
of
all of that.
course,
You know,
yeah.
all these potions that you used to make. You know, they used to
Yeah.
look at this stuff as magic,
Well,
and
do you know what I find interesting is the whole idea of the evolution of plants with humans. Like, we have evolved with plants in a way that they interact with us in certain ways. Not just plants. I'm talking about mushrooms. I'm talking about nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so all these things that are like all these plants and stuff, it's got me questioning, like, are they actually made for us in a way? Like, the plant survives with it's crazy. Like, the cannabinoids are made for the plant to help the plant with the stress of radiation, UV and stuff. But at the same time, those are the ones that interact with our endocannabinoid system.
It does make you think, because like the effects that it has on people are far too specific to be accidental. Because, you know, there's a lot of things in nature that will just fuck you up, or they'll just feed you.
Yeah.
You know, you can eat it, you know, shit it out and you're good, or you can eat it and you can just die. Where there is some of these things that have a very particular, like, psychedelic effect on you. So it does actually make you think that, you know, what the purpose of it is.
If you even look at the color and, like, the fact that we can interpret color as our senses. If you look into nature and you can see the bugs and stuff with red and yellow, these are like signs, like, I'm probably bad for you. Like, the same with mushrooms. Like, if they look like crazy, they're probably going to kill you. You know, like, not to say that there's undercover brothers that look all right and will actually kill you as well. There are those, but when you look at magic mushrooms and stuff, they're like blue and, like, you know, things that you'd be like, oh, that's a novel little thing there. The same with cannabis. The way that the flower is so.
It kind of, like, it looks attractive to a person to an extent. You know,
yeah.
it looks like an object of curiosity.
Yeah.
If you don't have some pre-existing knowledge and, you know, indoctrination on what these things are, like, if you just kind of a person that went out into the bush knowing absolutely nothing, you'd be like, you would be drawn to things like that.
But going back to your thing about society and whether we'd benefit from hallucinogenics and exploration of that, of course, like, why do you think they are class A scheduled drugs? You know, like, those are the top regulated, like, you mustn't do these, when they actually don't. It's not founded upon anything like this. Why they need to be regulated as such? The only reason is because they look back at, like, the hippie era, you know, in the 70s and stuff, and be like, these people are, you know, they don't want the DDT, they don't want all this, they want to be one with nature. Oh, you wonder why.
They don't want to conform to these things. And essentially it does kind of break this routine that was created, you know, the whole, you know, like the 8-hour workday, which, you know, at its inception, it was created as this, you know, efficient way of living of, you know, you get 8 hours to sleep, you get 8 hours to work, and you get 8 hours for recreation. But as we look at it these days, like, this whole balance is all out of whack. You know, people work like a lot more than 8 hours most of the time, especially if you're trying to get somewhere, if you have any sort of ambition, you sleep a lot less. You know, on average, most people don't sleep 8 hours. I know very few people who regularly sleep 8 hours. Most people don't. Most people sleep about 6. And when it comes to actual recreation as well, like, well, how much recreation are you actually doing? You know, is it actually recreation, or are you just doing more? Like, especially in the current era where everyone is, you know, like, it's not sufficient to hold down one job anymore. You know, people are having to take up all these side hustles, so to speak. So, you know, you finish your day job and then you start doing something else. Yeah. So, you know, how much of that is actual recreation?
Well, how much of it is actually living? Because
exactly. So once you take that out, what have you done? Like, what have you? If you look at it from the point of view of a person that just kind of, you know, like, works a more or less standard job. We're not going to look at some of the more like interesting arrangements where you might have night shifts, you might have rotating shifts. Let's just take a person who has what's considered a very traditional job, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You know what I mean? And in terms of that, how much of that time do you actually kind of live, all you have is the weekend, really?
Yeah, well, it's also like, if you were not getting paid to do what you're doing, would you do it? Like, if money wasn't a thing, would you do what you're doing to live?
Of course not.
No, exactly. Well, it depends. Like,
well, for like the vast majority of people, it wouldn't be. I mean, the reason why I say of course not is just because look at who's doing what. The whole system relies on almost like an ant colony kind of arrangement, where it's always nice to talk about these CEOs and these great people that we write about in the newspapers, but like we don't talk about everybody who works for them and the kind of lives that they live, and what goes on in their life and how meaningless it is at the end of the day in comparison.
Well, like, I think meaning is all what you give meaning to, but
but for them there really isn't much, because all you're
they
doing
don't
is
think that, because like society has told them you get a 9 to 5, you want that, like, and your career is an investment. Like, people don't want to look back at their life at one point and be like, fuck, was all that for nothing?
Because the meaning is decided for them. Like the job,
but they don't realize it
has meaning because it gives you money to provide for your family, and that's your meaning. Like this is what it is.
Oh yeah, well, it's even like, did you even question whether you wanted to have kids or not, or was that just something that you always thought you wanted to do because you've been instilled by all these factors within society, like the media, like the conditioning we experience, especially with the TV, like from our generation, like fuck.
And it's funny because what has happened as well is it created this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
As well, like it doesn't end. It's not like we used to look at it as each generation is supposed to do a little bit better. Like if your parents struggled, they kind of gave up their entire lives grinding so you could have something, and before you know it, their life was over. And you're supposed to do that much better than them.
But
like,
do
you
is
actually?
Subjective, like, and so that's what we've been conditioned to believe, is there is such thing as better. There is such thing as progress. Yeah,
but in terms of better, like I'm talking about, like in terms of your quality of life.
So that's subjective as well.
Well, for when we talk about quality of life, we expect that we attach some sense of fulfillment and happiness to that. We're not just talking about like, your quality of life is better because you have better shit than your parents did, because you can afford more stuff. If back in the day somebody would like grind their entire life for a period.
You're still thinking in terms of society, like you can find that fulfillment right now, right here, in any sense.
But that would make you an anomaly in a society like that.
Well,
it's not easy, and that's what I mean.
Like that's the conditioned mind. Like
exactly, but the problem is the majority is conditioned, and you like, just by saying that, it's all about your mindset, it's about your kind of beliefs and everything, but the reality is when you're surrounded by this, when you're sitting in this shit all day long, you're not really going to know anything else, and the concept of an alternative kind of mind state is just that.
Unless you start to question it, like unless you start to really, like, and that's why I think that nature and the connection to nature is being severed, because when you go there, you realize how unimportant all this other bullshit is.
Exactly, and what else actually I feel has happened throughout this course of pandemic? It did allow people a little bit of time. Even like eventually, kind of, I got kind of all messed up into this, work from home arrangement. But there was a time, like if you take it right back to say about like maybe March of 2020, when everyone just got locked down and nobody was doing shit. And I feel like at that point, quite a bit of that kind of thinking happened. I know it definitely did for me. It just readjusted a lot of my priorities. It's just like, well, what am I doing? I've spent up until that point, I personally spent like a lot of time just grinding, just working hard, working towards something, and I didn't even know what it was for. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going somewhere with this. I'll figure it out eventually.
Where do you want to go? Where's the destination?
Exactly. And like ultimately, once I actually found that time, because that's what I always told myself, I was like, man, I really don't have time for anything. And I was like, and suddenly I had time. And at that point, I actually thought about like what I want out of life, how I want to feel. It's like, it's nice to have shit, but how does that shit make you feel? Yeah. So like, I think this is what it allowed us to do to some extent, some more than others. But I think this is why we are where we are right now. We're experiencing, as a society, a bit of a cognitive dissonance between what is and what we would like. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I believe, like, we keep on getting told we need to unite, but there's a splitting of different ideas here, and it's really interesting to see. It's because some people can't see another alternative other than being in the system, and they will die to protect it. They will actually. There's no sort of waking up to something else. Whether I know that's probably going to be quite like controversial, but and on the other side, you've got people who realise that people have been sort of accepting money as survival, and now that money is kind of taken a step back, they realise that it's not actually survival. Like, if worse came to worse, you would live through a night in the forest.
Yeah, and I mean,
like you would be able to pick your berries.
The way you put it, actually, I think money almost starts to sound like an addiction.
Yeah.
Like
and it's the hoarding thing.
You become dependent on it. Like you just kind of need more and more and more. And most of the time you don't actually become any happier. You become like you're going to end up wanting more. Very similar to one of those bad kind of drug addictions where, like, for example, heroin is just it's never enough. Like each hit makes you want more and more and more until you get to the point where you're just ODing.
Okay. With the money thing as well, it's like, why do you want to hoard? Why do you want to get money? If you're thinking of in terms of survival of the fittest, and it comes down to the male and female as well. It's like, as a male, you're told, or like, and even in nature, it's like the alpha male. I don't even like that term, but if you're a strong male, you're going to attract all these females. When it's tied in with money, you've got this idea that the more you have, the more of that you're going to have, and it's no coincidence to me that one of the most topics that you can't touch is sex, because it's so tied in with our conditioning and everything, like our programming, the hypersexualization of women, and this money-driven thing, like everything. When you look at certain marketing aspects, you can see that a lot of them go on being more attractive to the other sex, or and it's so tied in together, and so,
well, as they say, sex sells.
Yeah, exactly. And when you break that down, it's all that's a portion of the hoarding. Like all these women looking at makeup tutorials all the time, and like, I know I'm wearing makeup right now.
It was kind of, but like I see what you mean. It's kind of like the bigger my bank account is, the bigger my muscles are, proverbial. You kind of, you're
the king.
Exactly. Yeah, you're the bigger dick in the house because you have more money, kind of thing. That's actually very true that it's kind of gotten to that point. Yeah,
when really, and all this, and that's when it comes into the porn, you can see it really as well, because the way that women are portrayed, and the way that people, porn is very animalistic, and there's nothing intimacy you can't really see, and and the love aspect, because that's really what we want on like a like everyone wants love, and that's like the basis of humanity, and that's kind of and it's not just humanity, it's within every species, you know, and we don't realize that we already have it, that we are a source of it, and it's marketed to us that we need to do this in order to be loved, or we need to do this, like, and you need to look this sexy, or this is the way you have sex, when actually it's all a fucking lie.
Yeah, it's funny because we kind of we started this conversation around like substance and whatnot, but I think actually what it did is brought us to an interesting point around, you know, our true addictions, so to speak, to the extent that it's, you know, it's a mass addiction. We're not like, you know, it's easy to say, oh, well, you know, everything is cool as long as you don't do drugs, because drugs are addictive and they'll do this and that. But in reality, we're actually addicted to a lot of things that we don't kind of think
of
about.
Fallacies. And you know, it's really interesting to see when you actually look inside your mind and you look at different things that are there. You're like, is that from me, or did I take that in from outside? The same as like, I know I know off the top of my head, I can visualize the McDonald's symbol, or I can visualize like all these vivid images of all these marketing things.
Well, that makes you think of the whole cause and effect thing, don't it?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you now. Well, I'm on the same page. There is a cause and effect.
Yeah, no. So I mean, in terms of that, at least on a societal level, you know, there is a cause and effect. There are going to be events. There are going to be, I mean, you know, usually there are events that lead to certain changes in society. You can see it throughout history, you know, all the different conquests. I mean, take something that is more or less fresh in our memory in terms of, you know, civilization, World War II. I mean, that really has changed a lot of the dynamic around humanity, because if you look at it, up until that point, things just didn't move as fast. You know, we didn't look at society the way we did after World War II. You know, we had the Industrial Revolution, you know, which is where this whole culture of, you know, 9 to 5 working has started. We moved on from kind of working on some lord's land, because I mean that's kind of what it was before that. You know, some guy owns a whole lot of land, you just live on it. You service it, you do whatever, you work on it, and in return you have somewhere to live. You know, and you serve that lord. And then, then the Industrial Revolution happened. We now have businesses. We now have people working for the businesses, and we now have this whole 9 to 5 dynamic. But it wasn't until after World War II that we've kind of decided to really get on with this push for the capitalist structure, because essentially World War II, as much as it was about a whole set of things, about politics, about land, about the whole obviously there's the Holocaust, the racial aspect to it. But the bottom line is, when you look at it, you know, we had socialism, we had communism, and we had capitalism. And capitalism dropped the big nuclear bomb and told everybody that they won the war.
Oh, yeah.
And from that,
I don't really know. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't really look at history too much. In regards to those big things, because I think, history is told from the portrayal of the victor.
Well, it's exactly exactly that.
And like, what, you know, as I said before, like, where are we going? Where are you going? Like, with your progress. And what's interesting is like this whole monetary system. Basically, if you follow the money, you know where we're going, and we're putting it into artificial intelligence, and we're putting it into like genetic engineering.
I mean, that's all good, right? Stuff. Like, cool, we'll make all the money, we'll take all that tech, but obviously we're kind of at a point where we're starting to need to think about what's next in terms of that system, because, okay, cool, we chose...
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you get these portions of progress that you're funneling money from the top. You're funneling money into tech, you're funneling money into like space exploration, and you're funneling money into genetic engineering and editing and stuff. You got to look at the reasons behind that. Those are the progressions in which we are being sifted, because if you think about your childhood aspirations or what's going to make you the most money, it's going to be in one of those routes. And so what happens is if you feed the money from the top, you will funnel the people who are able to make those progressions faster, because those people are attracted to the money.
No, that's all good. What I'm saying is, if we continue on this path of constantly pursuing money, like the biggest shortcoming of capitalism is based on an infinite growth model. So basically it implies that in order to succeed, you must continually grow. The GDP has to grow, the production has to grow, population has to grow, everything grows except the resources, because we live on a rock that doesn't just keep reproducing itself. Eventually you're going to run out of shit. So, you kind of do have to move away, but I don't feel like we're surrounded by enough kind of galactical real estate for us to be able to keep up with that.
No, of course, and the capitalistic model is always going to fail. But and that's why, like, if you look at and of course, if you're at the top of this model, you understand that. You understand there's a point in which this will collapse, because people will realize that their resources are not infinite. Like, there are so many people and activists and stuff who are fighting for the land, fighting for the rights, and fighting for regenerative systems that allow us to sustain life here for longer. Because we know that the seas are, there's so many populations of the sea. Like, they say that most of the fishes are going to die in like 10 years, and that the sea is, like, when that happens, like, we're all fucked. And then you've got the bees as well. But like, this is where it comes back to what you're doing with genetic engineering and space exploration and technology. If you really think about it, that it's not out of this world to understand that technology, you're looking at robots, you're looking at artificial intelligence, you're looking to replace humans.
Yeah, do you think, I wanted to ask you that, do you think that it'll get to that point? Because we are looking at, we're starting to play God to the point where we are going to start dying out, and we're going to have, artificial intelligence here. We're going to be spread out through all over the place, and we're going to have to create almost new things for us to keep living, because we're killing off the ones that are already here, the ones that we didn't put here ourselves.
Well, not just that. If you think about if you look at life, there are people, like plants, animals, mushrooms, whatever, they all thrive in different conditions. So when you understand that, and you can isolate genes from, say, the, what are they called? Eukaryotes. Okay, there's a type of life that we haven't explored that much, that lives in settings such as volcanoes, like thermophiles, which can actually live in these conditions. So once you understand that, and you take the genes that are necessary for that, and you put them into, say, humans, which will happen.
Reminds me of a movie.
Oh, I bet. I don't know.
You haven't seen it?
No, which one?
There's a movie with the guy I think it's the guy from Avatar, if memory serves me correctly. But basically, they're looking at, the world is ending. We're we're really on the brink of extinction, and so they start kind of to genetically modify people. They insert certain genes into them that make them adaptive to the harsher climate, so that they can survive on other planets. So that's their kind of
not just
approach to it.
But survive here, but it won't be humans, because.
And that's what happened. They evolved past that point. It became so aggressive that they no longer saw humans as humans. They started killing half of them.
But that's why.
Sent them off to the outer world, and they're like flying around these volcanoes there and just enjoying life.
And then that's why you've got the tech to combine it, because if you're thinking about total control and whatever, I don't even know what kind of idea they or whoever has about what they want, but if you take technology where you are in control of, like, that sort of species that you've made to withstand some sort of life, conditions of life, that's where we're headed.
I mean, it's all fine if you want to control them, but what's the point? Like, what's that control going to give you?
Yeah, I know exactly. And I don't know, because I can't, like,
Because there's only so long that you can create something that's, in a lot of ways superior to you biologically, until you become redundant. I mean, it's, we've seen this a million times. It's like the whole, like, robots turn on humans, essentially to start seeing humanity as a redundant species compared to them. So
they just got, like, humans are like a virus,
Yeah. So I mean, it happens with with robots. It's happened with AI. All of this, but is it just because people don't understand that controlling things to that extent is kind of detrimental to them, or
maybe it's a dick swinging competition? I don't know. Like, I can't put myself in the position. Like, I've tried to understand the sort of where we're going. I've tried to understand that
because the thing is, like, you and I have talked about this for just over an hour, and we managed to come to that conclusion. And it's like, and we're just a couple of people doing what we do, but like, if these guys are such great minds, like, why have you not thought of that? Like, you're doing all this shit. Like, it's great, you're innovating, experimenting, but you're taking major risks. Not like with everyone, you're taking it with yourself. Like, you're looking at potentially making yourself redundant here.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're taking it from your point, fatalistic point of view, then it's all about the experience. Why not just? I don't know. I'm just like speculating here, but why not just, like, let's go full Monty? Get these humans.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm talking about experience. I'm not talking about fucking, getting wasted and doing some dumb shit like, oh, let's just kill humanity.
But what happens when you win capitalism? There is no end, as you said, like, to hoarding resources. To like, where does it end? It doesn't, like.
Oh, I mean, it does end. It does have an ending. It essentially implodes and collapses, like, to the point where it's like an apocalypse. We start eating each other and we kind of regress back to that point where, like, nobody works for shit anymore. We're just going to go and...
I'm saying if you are the most elite person, you own loads and loads of resources I can't even imagine. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you do then? I think you start paying the power card even more, like, to whatever whim you desire. Like, you're just like, it's all about the experience. I want to control the masses. I want to create AI, because then AI will be able to create or be able to research for me so that I can live forever, or whatever, and I can control them all, blah blah blah. I don't really understand. I don't know.
Does that mean, like, when you look at it, we do have kind of this inclination for it, because throughout history we've had many people that kind of tried to present themselves as, living gods and whatnot, and, they kind of, back then that's how they approached it, because people believed in it. Obviously these days, we're a bit more, scientifically advanced, although, we still have social media influences, but, in terms of that, I do feel like, the only potential that they could have is, essentially creating some sort of AI that would be able to manipulate people's thinking to such an extent where you wouldn't even know that this is happening to you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, in terms of
that's like the Matrix. That's like basically the Matrix, which I like. In a sense, I think we already are in one, with the whole money and being the illusion.
Yeah, so I mean, like, in that sense, we go so hard trying to progress, but we do become victims of our own success.
Well, if you question what is progress, then that's the biggest question, because as humans we are creative. We can create whatever we want, really, and it's like, what do you want to create? Where does this progression? Why do we want to progress?
What is progress to you?
Progress for me?
Yeah.
Progress for me is the fulfillment of my my desires as a human. To be in as you said, like, it's not what you have; it's the feeling. So for me, that's like to feel love, to feel happiness and to feel an abundance of like.
What about progress in a kind of social? So not just kind of like your personal progress. I'm talking about what does progress mean to you from a social point of view? Like how how do you think it should be? I mean, obviously, you know, like we're not kind of we're not saying well, you know, you're here to decide that, make the call, but you know, like what do you think it could be? What would be that definition for you?
Well, I mean, those ideas that I have about on an individual level also reflect to the level of the external that I'd want to see as progress, is like us moving towards like peace, us moving towards love, and us moving to which we already have. We just need to break down all the bullshit. That's the same with us inside. Like we already have the love, the happiness, and the abundance that we all seek, but we don't realize it. And the same, I don't want to see people suffer. Like, I mean, you know, I believe that to have these highs, you need the lows, and that they're all sort of happiness is the same string as sadness. It's just flung on.
It's just knowing it's knowing the opposite end of it. Yeah.
But when it comes to actual, you know, these terrible things that are happening in the world that are just unjust and do not need to happen, and for other people to have such control and to tell you that, you know, that they can chop down the tree for no fucking reason, like to put a plaque there, like that's insane. And that's even just on a tree level. But when you look at all the people who are in these concentration camps, and we just turn a blind eye to it because we know that we're out of control, we can't do anything to help. And the Falun Gong people outside the Chinese embassy, like I walked past them today, I just like I can't even, like just knowing that there are those kinds of things happening in the world that are unnecessary and that we can stop whenever we want if we just break down this stupid fucking illusion that we're in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I agree, you know, I do agree that to a large extent we as a civilization are going through a bit of growing pains right now. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we're not actually, as a species, we haven't been around for that long in the context of, you know, of existence. And on one hand, you can see us starting to adjust. You could call that progress. It's the removal of certain limitations, of certain, you know, traditional kind of, you know, you have to be this way kind of stuff. We're a lot more accepting of it. There are a lot of kinks to work out, because you still have your conservatives, and you still, you know, you have the other extreme as well that are just so woke to the extent they want to cancel anything that isn't like that. So, but you know, we're slowly starting to to begin that process. I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetime, and at the end of the day, this is why a lot of these things are happening all over the world. So to say that it could just stop, it's going to take a little bit of a while for things to, you know, for people to kind of get their head out of their ass. Yeah. And it takes certain painful experiences for them to do that. True. Again, you know, World War II was one of them. We we've learned not to fuck around with nuclear bombs because have we learned anything? No, we're at least we're a lot more cautious about it. Or
maybe about nuclear bombs, but when it comes to how we treat each other, we haven't learned a fucking thing.
No, we haven't. But you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's these traumatic experiences that seem to teach us more than anything else, which is it's an unfortunate fact, but it's a reality.
Well, and as I was saying, you know, like trauma is on the same sort of it's one extreme of the other one, which is peace, I would say. Like
learning from that experience.
They're two sides of the same coin, and
pain gives you a memory of what not to do, you know.
Well, not just that, but not what not to do, and also what we can learn and how we can make moves to experience the other end of the spectrum. But here if you even look at the implementation of this certification to go places, that is people buying into that is just insane. Like, and that's why I don't see this like
It's interesting because it goes back to this overprotectiveness of something else, because we don't do it because like we just don't like them because I've done something and you didn't do something, because the excuse is always like, well, there are people that need protecting and you people are putting those people at risk.
Yeah.
So
and it's fear of death. It comes back to fear of death, fear of suffering, and fear of loss. And it's interesting because if you actually more, like, where does that fear of death come from? It's like if you look in nature, it is the cycle. You see the leaf is green, then you see it turn a different color, and then you see it fall off the tree. Like, within nature, you can see that everything is okay. Like,
yeah, no, I mean that's
the
true.
whole
That's what I
cycle.
mean. It's just you live, you die, and it's it's a never-ending circle of life. But as people, we grow attached to that living, to that experience. Yeah, but then again, see, you say I'm fatalist, but if we kind of start ignoring that, what happens then? Then we really kind of don't value life as much anymore.
No, not at all. We value every moment of life. Like, you'll be like, if we really truly went back to nature, went back to, as you said, like, you get into a meditative state, you realize that nothing matters within this illusion, and that's what we can have all the time. Like, we can grow our own food. Like, how bizarre, like crazy shit, and there's even different veggies that grow in different seasons. Oh, I wonder why that is, maybe because we're meant to do it, like, and we're not meant to do it on a commercial scale. Like, you are able to put your hands in the dirt and you will feel meaning in that. And like, it's insane that people have been so disconnected from nature that they don't understand that holds all the keys.
I feel like it's also just the stigma attached to that too. Just because when you say that, right, when you say go touch a tree, go put your hands in the dirt, and everyone's like, oh, these fucking hippies, go run around with with no pants on or something like that. But it came from somewhere. I mean, we can, if we look deep enough, we can probably figure out where it came from. But at the end of the day, we're like, the conditioning has been such that we don't take that stuff not only not seriously, but we look at it as just something absolutely like kooky. You're crazy.
And that's
I'm normal because I go to work. I'm normal because I just I grind my life away all day long. But you're crazy because you went and touch the tree.
Yeah, well, I'd say that you're crazy because you don't know yourself. Like, you don't.
Yeah, now that I get that, but the thing is, when you look at the proportion of the people that would say one versus the other, the unfortunate reality is, the first option will be still ever present compared to the second.
Well, in the society, yeah, but when you get to the point of collapse of the model, then there's gonna and we're approaching it. Yeah,
I mean, we're gonna spend a few years eating each other and killing each other. You best believe that's gonna happen. But
I'm not gonna eat another person.
but at the end of the day, I feel like this is kind of something that we'll eventually have to figure out.
Yeah, well.
And I mean, I would love nothing more than for that to happen without these painful experiences. But
we're choosing revolution here. We're choosing the hard path. Or as I said, there seems to be sort of splitting on two different ideals, and that sort of sets you up for a revolution and not like a natural evolution.
And it's unfortunate because it's the thing is we don't want that any more than anybody else.
Well, you don't care because you're fatalistic.
Yeah, but but that's me. At least I can understand that.
I'm talking about like that kind of mindset where.
But that mindset is not abundant in nature, fortunately. There can only be one rolling Russia. But if you look at it from the two ends of the spectrum, the kind of the more, shall we say, I don't even know what to call them, but we can call them like urbanized, overly civilized, whatever.
I just say conditioned, like.
But like that, the establishment, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep working. Let's create more laws. Let's make more rules. Versus the people who just want to chill, that want to be one with nature. I feel like neither one of them actually want a revolution any more than the
No,
other.
absolutely not.
Yeah, you know,
And-
because nobody wants to go through the pain of it, but unfortunately, this is where the difference
feel
comes
like-
in. And if there's gonna be unity over anything, address that first.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
feel
that's like the one thing that people need to come together on
Yeah.
before talking about anything. Like, it ain't got shit to do with the pandemic. It just has to do with your state of mind. And
I
until
feel
they
like-
get sorted, you can't blame anybody for shit. Like, so people that are always complaining that, you know, some people are on one end and some people are on the other, you know, the thing is, they're throwing stones at each other from the
Yeah.
opposite ends of the
Well,
field.
we've been set up, like, you know, like it's a big, massive setup, and we've fallen into the trap. It's the same with why people think progress of the species lies within technology. It's not a coincidence. Like, it's all been set up that way. And you know what's funny is because when humans do agree, if we get to that point, like when we all come and unite as one, what have we created? We've created technology that is controlled by certain people that will, you know, has the potential to eradicate us, and we've set that up of our own accord. So it's
You know, like, if you think that success is that kind of progress, then we're definitely victims of our own success.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy thing.
If you're watching this, I reckon you should smoke a blunt to it. I reckon you're gonna enjoy this shit. I mean, we've gone down some rabbit holes here, but this is, you know, like this is the interesting kind of conversations that I love having, and I hope that, you know, y'all can share in this too.
And I don't mean to be controversial.
No, fuck it, you know, sometimes you just gotta be, right?
Okay.
Peace.